These images look straight out of a sci-fi movie, but they are in fact real. In broad daylight, the blue sky has vanished in parts of Australia. Surprised residents venture out into the orange-red haze.
3:30 in the afternoon. I don't know if you see it, but this is oranged out.
Sky over Australia turned red. A blood red sky, stretching across entire coastlines. Millions of people stopped what they were doing and looked up. And the word they kept using was apocalyptic. Now, before we go any further, I need to say something clearly. I am not here to tell you the world is ending. What I am here to do is show you exactly what happened, what they are not telling you, and why the timing of all of this is something you need to sit with. Because the red sky was not the story. On March 16th, a tropical disturbance formed near the Solomon Islands, 1,000 kilometers from the Australian coast. Within 72 hours, it had a name, a Category 5 rating, and sustained winds of 225 kilometers per hour, gusts hitting 275. The Bureau of Meteorology described it as compact, dangerous, and unusually predictable. They knew exactly where it was going. That detail matters. Cyclone Narelle, the strongest storm to strike Queensland's Cape York Peninsula in 127 years. The last cyclone of this intensity to hit that exact stretch of coast was Cyclone Mahina. That was 1899. 307 people died in a single night. 127 years had passed since anything like this touched that land. And now, here it was again. On March 20th, Narelle made its first landfall between Lockhart River and Cape Melville. Then it crossed into the Northern Territory, second landfall. Then it did something meteorologists almost never see. It crossed the entire continent. Now pause here, because this is where the script starts to change. Normally, a cyclone dies over land. The friction drains it, the moisture cuts off, the circulation collapses. That is basic meteorology. That is what they teach in textbooks. Cyclones do not survive continental crossings. Narelle did. It emerged over the Indian Ocean off Western Australia's coast, found water temperatures above 27 degrees Celsius, and rebuilt itself. A dead storm came back to life. By March 25th, it had reorganized. By March 26th, it was a Category 4 again. Meteorologists were watching something they had never documented before. Ask yourself, when was the last time you heard about a cyclone crossing an entire continent and intensifying on the other side? Why is that not the dominant conversation right now? Then came the sky. As Narelle's outer circulation tightened over Western Australia, winds exceeding 150 kilometers per hour swept across the arid interior and lifted millions of tons of iron-rich red soil into the upper atmosphere. A dust wall, thousands of meters high. When sunlight passed through that curtain of suspended iron oxide, shorter wavelengths scattered and disappeared. Only red and orange light reached the ground. Residents of Shark Bay woke up on March 27th to a sky that looked like the surface of Mars. The footage went viral within hours. Every major media outlet ran the images. The blood red sky, the dramatic footage, the apocalyptic visuals. People could not stop sharing it. And while everyone was staring at the sky, something else was happening on the ground. At approximately 2 in the afternoon on March 27th, Narelle made its third landfall south of Coral Bay. Then it hit Exmouth, a holiday town 1,250 kilometers north of Perth. Category 4 force winds, directly. Winds exceeding 250 kilometers per hour. Roofs torn from buildings. Windows shattered. The airport wrecked. The main road flooded. The town cut off entirely. Inside the town's official evacuation center, 40 people felt the roof peel away above them. Metal sheets ripped free and vanished into the storm. It was too dangerous to move, so they stayed, crouched inside a building that was no longer a building, while the cyclone screamed overhead. That image, 40 people sitting under an open sky inside what used to be a shelter, that should have been the headline everywhere. It wasn't, because 225 kilometers offshore, something else went dark. Here is the part they buried under the weather coverage. Chevron Chevron's Wheatstone platform, offline. Hours later, one of 3 processing trains at Chevron's Gorgon facility on Barrow Island shut down. Then Woodside's North West Shelf followed. 3 of the largest energy facilities on Earth all went dark within hours of each other. Now let's talk about what these facilities actually are, because the numbers matter. Gorgon alone produces 15.6 million metric tons of liquefied natural gas per year. Wheatstone adds 8.9 million. Together with the Northwest Shelf, these 3 facilities represent roughly 8% of the entire world's liquefied natural gas supply. 8% gone simultaneously. And this happened in a global energy market that was already fracturing under the pressure of the Iran war. Narelle did not just hit Australia. Narelle cracked the global energy system. And the coverage? The blood red sky, the dramatic footage, the apocalyptic word choices. All of it ran for days. The energy story? Buried in paragraph 7 of financial publications. Most people never read. Now, I am not saying that is deliberate. I am just asking you to notice it. Let's go back to something I asked you to remember. The Bureau of Meteorology said Narelle was unusually predictable. They knew exactly where it was going, days in advance. And yet, the 40 people inside that evacuation center in Exmouth were still there when the roof came off. The 500 residents of Numbulwar, a remote indigenous community directly in Narelle's path, had to be airlifted out by the Australian Defence Force 2 days before the storm hit. Some of them had never left their community before. Now think about that contrast. On one side, a government with full satellite tracking, full meteorological modeling, full military resources. On the other side, 40 people sitting under an open sky in a building that used to have a roof. The question is not whether they knew the storm was coming. They did. The question is, what did they prioritize when it arrived? Here is what no one is talking about yet. The LNG platforms are still offline. Inspectors cannot even reach the facilities. Sea conditions are still too rough. And here's the part that should make you stop scrolling. No one knows whether those shutdowns were precautionary or whether there is actual physical damage. Every single day those platforms stay dark, global energy prices climb higher. Every single day. And the world is not exactly in a stable moment right now. 2,000 homes across Exmouth and Carnarvon still have no power. The Catherine River is still in flood. Road closures persist across the Northern Territory. And the 500 residents of Numbulwar are still in Darwin, waiting to find out what is left of their community. Now here is where I want you to think carefully, because this is the layer that nobody is mapping out in the mainstream coverage. The ocean temperatures that rebuilt Narelle over the Indian Ocean are not cooling. That is not a conspiracy. That is oceanographic data. The water is warmer, which means the fuel that resurrects dead storms is not going away. The dust that turned the sky red came from land that is getting drier, more arid, more exposed, which means the blood red sky events become more likely, not less. And the global energy infrastructure that cracked under the pressure of one cyclone was already running on fumes before Narelle even formed. So here is the question nobody in a mainstream newsroom is asking. Australia's largest energy export infrastructure sits on a coastline that produces category 4 and 5 cyclones. The facilities are offshore. They are enormous. They are difficult to evacuate and difficult to inspect after a major event. And they represent nearly 1/10 of the world's LNG supply. Who decided that was acceptable? Who signed off on that level of concentrated risk? And why, when one storm took out 8% of global energy supply, did the dominant story become the color of the sky? DFES Commissioner Darren Clems surveyed the aftermath and used 2 words: devastation everywhere. But then he added something that almost sounds impossible when you lay out everything we just walked through. 4 landfalls, 3 states, category 5 peak intensity, 250 km/h winds, a roof torn off a shelter full of people, no confirmed injuries. And I want to be honest with you about that. That is extraordinary. That is genuinely remarkable. The evacuation of Numbulwar worked. The people in that roofless building survived. That matters. That deserves to be said clearly. But survival is not the same as safety. And a storm that killed no one still managed to knock out 8% of the world's energy supply, while the cameras were pointed at a red sky. Cyclone Narelle did not create a crisis. It revealed one that was already there. The wind has stopped. The sky is clearing. The images are getting fewer likes because the algorithm has already moved on to the next thing. But the platforms are still dark. The rivers are still rising. The 500 people from Numbulwar are still waiting. And somewhere over warm water, above 27 degrees Celsius, the next system is already forming. I am not telling you what to think. I am showing you what happened and asking you to look at the full picture, not just the part they framed for you. The sky turned red, but that was never the story. Question everything, verify what you can, and don't let the dramatic image make you miss what's sitting quietly underneath it. If you find this helpful, hit like, subscribe, hit the bell.